Welcome to the 28th of October Ordinary Council meeting. I'll declare the meeting open. Paul, would you do the character?
Yes. E whona rei he korori he maungarongo ki te whenua kāro whai ki ngā tangata katoa. Ngā te atua ki ngā kauhara ki roto ki tēnā o mātou. Whakatungi e tō wairoa tapu hei awhinga hei tohu mai a mātou tēnei wā a wangawanga. Ki te ingo te mātua te tamata wairoa tapu. Glory be to the Father, and the Son, and the Spirit, and glory to God in the highest and peace with people on earth. May we ask God to guide us in this meeting and to, with His Holy Spirit at this time of uncertainty of COVID.
Apologies, we have an apology from Francois, who's stuck between Canary and here. Do we have any other apologies?
We wish apology from Councillor Cogan for lateness.
Just apology, I've got to leave the meeting at 3 o'clock.
Thank you. So apology for Councillor Cogan for lateness. And Councillor Hartshaw leaving at 3 o'clock. Someone like to move? So, Deputy Mayor Carruthers, Councillor Hart, those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Move on to the declaration of interest, and if there's anything on today's agenda in either confidential or in the main meeting, to ensure that you update the register. Councillor Davidson has advised via email on the 17th of October that he has a conflict of interest regarding a report to be heard in the public excluded section of the meeting, and that item involves the appointment of a director to council-controlled organisation, and Councillor Davidson has advised that he will vacate the chambers for the entirety of this matter. Move on now to item 4 on the agenda, which is urgent items not on the agenda. I'd advise that in the public excluded, there will be an item added, which is the Fox Glacier Water Treatment Plant Upgrade Project. The reason that the item was not added to the agenda was an administrative error. B, the item can't be delayed as the contractor wishes to start work and commence and be able to meet the timeframes that have been agreed to. The second item is the Infrastructure Acceleration Fund for the Hokitika Racecourse development. The reason the item was not added to the agenda was that the information has just been received and the item can't be delayed due to the tight timeframes to be met to access the infrastructure money.
Just to point of clarification, it's not to meet infrastructure money, it's to meet the further request for information required.
Thanks for the clarification, Sam. Would someone like to move that the Fox Glacier Water Treatment Plant Upgrade Project and the Infrastructure Acceleration Fund Hokitika Racecourse Development be added to the end of the report section of the public excluded section of this meeting? Councillor Martin, thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor Hart. Are those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is the minutes of meeting. Now, the minutes have all been previously circulated via Microsoft Teams. We've had no requests for changes, but could well be. And we'll move on to the ordinary council meeting minutes of the 30th of September 2021. Are there any comments in relation to those minutes? I invite a councillor to move that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 30th of September 2021 be confirmed as a true and correct record of the meeting. Councillor Davidson, thank you. Councillor Hart, those in favour?
Aye.
I approve that my digital signature be added to the confirmed ordinary council meeting minutes of the 30th of September 2021. The following minutes are to be received. And I think, take advice, but Diane, can I take one resolution to receive the lot? Okay. They are the Planning Committee minutes of the 3rd of June 2021, the Community Development Committee meeting minutes of the 14th of June 2021, the Extraordinary CEs Review Committee minutes of the 18th of February 2021, the Extraordinary CEs Review Committee meetings of the 16th of March 2021, and the Extraordinary CEs Review Committee minutes of the 29th of April 2021. Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor Crothers and Councillor Neal. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you for that. Move on to the item 6 on the agenda, which is the action list that asks the Chief Executive to present. On pages 6 to 11 of your agenda.
So good afternoon, Your Worship and Councillors. There's 18 actions. I'll take you through one by one. Canary School crossing. So we have almost completed that process. The outstanding pieces of work are the island works, which is obviously the entrance from Canary Bridge, plus also the reserved parking area. So the intention is to have that pieces of work completed mid-November. So we're only about 3 weeks away from finishing that piece of work, which will be a major milestone. And then once again, we'll follow the opening date of the school in the new year. Speed limit review, stage 2. In discussion with the transportation manager today, what we will intend to do is go out, start public consultation in potentially February for the second round. That aligns with NZTA's changes as well in terms of their proposed changes around speed limits. Ross Chinese Gardens flooding issues. Made a firm commitment to have a resource consent application posted by the end of next week. That is on track, still be done. There is further work to be done post resource consent with the community in regards to execution of the resource consent. There is quite a stringent process that needs to be followed and supervised because the works are under council name and council will have liability due to the resource consent requirements. Rebel Seed trial works is still continuing on that process. The design is almost finalised in terms of landscape design, and you would have seen construction works happening for the decking going in at the moment. Hokitika Wastewater Treatment Plant update. That is going very well in terms of the liaison with the new subcommittee. We're having really good buy-in from our iwi partners. And the next stage is to develop locations of potential interest in terms of sites. So getting into the meat of the project now, we've all got an agreed outcome statement identified. Old Christchurch Road seal extension. We've got some minor works to be completed by the end of December, so that's on track.
Simon, was that road going to go all the way through to the?
No, this is to do with the original funding we received. We are yet to determine the next seal project. That's within the current unsealed budget. So I've asked the transport manager to confirm the unsealed road part of that.
What portion of the whole road is that unsealed remaining?
Quite a bit. So about at least another third hasn't been developed. But I think we've got about, I can't remember, the top 2.8 kilometres of developed area that needs to be sealed.
Crazy to do so much so well and to leave it undone.
Yeah. So there's a piece of work to be done around assigning the unsealed portion of that budget. Investigating costs for both this building and Pakawaitara building. You'll see in today's council update in terms of Pakawaitara building, we have a scope of work at a high level, and we intend to do the same philosophy for this building very shortly in November. I present back in November. So we also have a business case concepts planning workshop for November planned for the Pakawaitara building. We are still reviewing the ability to save the trees in their current situ. And, Scott Baxendale is shaking his head in the background, but working with the developers and for our second stage concept design. Maintenance program for Cement Road. We have started doing some monitoring along Cement Road based on some recent requests for sealing the road, so getting some numbers in terms of traffic and speeds. Road maintenance action updates, a lot of talk around parking, so we will bring a report back to council regarding potential parking upgrades around the CBD that can be instigated immediately, and also ones that will need to go through an annual plan process. So Transport Department will bring that back next round. Western Holdings Limited, staggered directorship renewal. You'll see that a letter has been sent and that task has been completed. A Three Waters resolution letter to central government has been sent and completed. LG&Z heads of letter agreement letter has been completed. Additions to the annual plan. Email has been sent to staff for inclusion in the process that has been completed. Responsible dog ownership program. A communications advisor to follow up. The article has been included in Western Matters and completed. And the last one, waste management delivery, loaded into teams on 7th of October, so signed off as completed. Happy to take any questions, Your Worship.
Thank you for that. Councillors will you give me a go.
No, nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Gosh, there's a lot. Yeah. It's gone regarding the River Street one-way trial. How much has been spent so far?
I don't have that figure to hand, but I can get that for you, roughly. I don't have that figure to hand, I'm afraid. It's still within the budget allocated.
The budget, of course, was started off 50,000 in stretch, wasn't it?
We have obviously some of those aspects particularly has been reassigned in terms of the original costing. I don't have that figure to hand. Sorry.
I mean, the works that's going on now is not going to be cheap, I imagine, for what's meant to be a trial. The coming down, following on from the comment from Deputy Mayor about Old Christchurch Road, and also further on the Jackson Bay Wharf is in the same boat, shall we say. The government gives us money to do half the job, and then
So we requested
to pick up the bill.
Yeah, so I understand what you're saying. So the issue for both Old Christchurch Road and for Jackson Bay, the estimates we provided were for what we knew at the time, until the works have been actually scoped fully. So bear in mind, we only had around 2 weeks to put applications in, if you recall, for the shovel-ready projects. We went with the best estimate in terms of cost. Hence the $3 million I requested for Old Christchurch Road didn't go far enough because of the amount of complications that contractors found along the way. Jackson Bay Wharf, the full report received from Liddell's obviously showed a larger piece of work. So we're about 2 million shy in terms of that full project. We know that. We have, I had that in my C's report, but we have been trying to chase the additional funding to complete that through PGF, but the door's closed. No, nothing's coming out from the other side.
which I find pretty extraordinary. Your worship. The government's been merrily printing money like there's no tomorrow, and then, but all of a sudden we're left with half finished jobs. I'm sure it's not who counts. Yeah, the only way out is for us to either leave them half finished or to use ratepayers' money to finish them.
We do have Jackson Bay Wharf in the LTP to complete in terms of full ratepayer funding. So there's 2 million sitting in year 4, I think it is, of our LTP. But I definitely will try and leverage external money as much as possible.
The item 12 and 16, which is about these shall I call them late items of capital works, cement lead road and the likes. I just thought that that's a little bit ad hoc, really, that we'd just been through the long-term plan process, and where projects were assessed and allocated and budgeted, etc. And then once that process is finished, then along come these other ones that have been slipped in there. It does seem ad hoc and perhaps a little bit unfair to some of those other projects that missed out.
Take it on board. We're just basically taking feedback from council requests and working through that, see if it can be afforded within the current budget. All of this is not going to be over budget. It has to come out of the transportation budget. So if you recall, the footpath upgrade had some unallocated funding, so that's getting reassigned to anything that pops up through the process. We will obviously identify priority 1 projects over and above any request as a given.
Yes. The cement lead road, I mean, look, all of those projects were there. I'm not denying that, but cement lead road was, there's quite a bit of debate about it during the long-term plan.
Since we're getting actual numbers, so we haven't committed to anything until we've got some data to validate that there's a problem. Let's talk about speed issues and also about condition of the road. The number of users using the road have to be assessed, and I think the grader has actually been working that road quite regularly. And it's what I've been told, I haven't physically looked myself, the standard is acceptable at the moment.
I think my last one was the Local Government New Zealand Heads of Agreement, and just noting that the Grey District Council has sent a letter of rebuke off to LGNZ and got a mea culpa from them.
Yeah, what, sorry?
We're very sorry.
Oh, okay.
Mea culpa. Are we going to do anything about this?
I think I would suggest we pick this up as part of the 3 warders review and the C's report in terms of outcomes.
It has been seen. And the response was
yes, I just think that that probably lets them off a little too lightly, to be honest, in my view. The Grey District Council, as I said, they got the full wanting of apologies. And I think we deserve it as well. Thank you.
Just through your worship, we did attend the Zone 5 and 6 meeting myself and his worship almost a week ago. And they did apologise severely in terms of to all mayors of the South Island and to the east regarding the way it's been handled in communication. And obviously there's been quite a number of emails back and forward in terms of where their position was on opt-in versus mandatory since then. But they basically say they've never been a supporter of a mandatory process.
Right, yes, well, of course that's easy to say once the funding's been threatened, but the okay, thank you.
So Martin.
Thank you, Your Worship, and very interesting comments, Paul, and thanks so much for the report. Just a few things. The Canary School crossing, the opening day, you did mention next year. Is that when you're aiming for?
Well, I think we're tied in with school opening in some sort of capacity. Now that we're almost into this school year.
Yep. Who's liaising with the school, do you know?
I'll pass that on to District Assets to take the lead on that. But if you've got someone that we need to liaise with directly, happy to take advice.
Okay, cool. Speed limit review sounds like it's progressing, so that's good. I'm just looking through. The Hoki Waitara and Council HQ, I think I'll probably have more to say on that in the CE's update, but no surprises. And there isn't actually any written update next to action item 12. Just for clarity, can you just say what that actually is, what the update in relation to those matters are? I appreciate it's putting you on the spot a bit, but just those road maintenance actions.
So item 1 is yet to be done, but I understand that NZTA were here in September, so obviously an apology. I'm not sure if we're raised directly with them with regards to this item at all. Was it brought up?
It was brought up, but the letter that was sent to the previous manager.
Oh,
he's a new manager, so it was a bit like, he hadn't seen it. So,
well, we did forward it to him prior to the meeting, so he was well aware of all our previous gripes, if you put it that way.
We could maybe write that next to the action too, let us send, just so we know. Yep.
I don't have a specific update on item 2. In terms of Change Railway Terrace, that is going to be part of the November report back to council in terms of parking.
Yeah, cool.
Same as item 4.
Mm-hmm.
And item 5 is underway.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. And my only other questions in relation to the WHL staggered directorship renewal. Just trying to get my head around that. That's for their subsidiaries?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So when I think I raised that was also about the process that we put in place for us for Western Holdings as well, to ensure that the directors we appoint all don't come full due at the same time.
Oh, I see.
So there's a bit that they need to do and also a bit we need to do probably to think about staggering the directorships.
Yeah. But we're waiting for them to do theirs.
Correctly, yeah. As long as it's not lost, it's not urgent. Yeah.
Also bear in mind that they have an intention to roll off one by one anyway. And that'll actually automatically have a staggered process by doing so.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Simon. No comments.
Councillor Hartrell.
No questions from me, thanks.
Councillor Kennedy.
Yeah, thank you. Just in terms of the Revel Street Stage 2 trial, now we haven't actually extended the trial officially yet, have we?
I can't recall the outcome of the last workshop.
Well, I think the original trial ran out in September, or perhaps if Fiona's there, she might be able to tell you. And here we are, and we haven't, with a box ticking organisation, we haven't actually ticked that box. So I think we should perhaps get on to that.
Fiona's online. Fiona, would you like to make a comment on that?
Yes, and my understanding from the workshop was that there was an intention to continue. So obviously, like explained at the time, there were the concurrent works that are happening that are not necessarily part of the one-way trial, but a part of the upgrade for the town centre. The one-way trial itself, my understanding was that our aim was to have the temporary decking in over the summer period to be able to see how that works.
Yeah, I think the point that is being raised is that the first trial period is over and we had agreed to extend it, but it hasn't been formally done. And I'm wondering whether we should just address that. Do we extend it to end of, what was your recommendation actually? Was it end of February or was it end of March? It was March, yeah. Perhaps I'd, to keep this moving, I could invite a councillor to move that we extend the trial period to the end of March to fill that gap which Councillor Kennedy has rightfully pointed out is missing.
I thought we had voted on it.
Yeah.
I thought we had it. Well, I think the confusion might be we did it at a planning meeting.
Okay, possibly.
No, I don't think so.
No,
I don't
because
think
I
it's been
remember
done.
being there, so I was
I don't
not
think it has been done.
Yeah.
Well, look, I'm quite happy to move. Do I have a second? Have a second? Deputy Mayor Crothers. Those in favour?
Aye.
And those against. So we're extending it to the 31st of March.
Okay, no,
Yeah.
that was all I had. Thank you. That's the swiftest anything's ever happened around here, I reckon.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Neal and Councillor Davidson.
Yeah, just on the item 7, the Old Christchurch Road. I actually met with the project manager out there from West Roads, which was Mike Saunders, and he sort of explained about what they had to do out there. There's quite a few flooding areas, history of flooding, so they had to put quite a bit of fill in there in those places, and also some of the corners, quite a bit of widening there. So they've done a fantastic job out there, and it's a great bit of road that they've just upgraded. And most of the residents that live out there, they think it's just absolutely fantastic. So I agree with Deputy Mayor David Crothers sort of saying that it'd be a shame not to complete the job out there. So that's on the Old Christchurch Road, and in terms of the one on the Cement Lead Road, I just think that there's sort of more priority sort of work to be done on roads and footpaths around the area here than the Cement Lead Road one. That's my view on that. Thank you.
Through Chair, just to highlight that we have a reduced fund in terms of what our requested fund budget was. So we have to be wise in terms of our execution of that fund to ensure we maximise the priority areas. If there's anything that we deem as surplus, which I doubt there will be, we'll then consider other areas to be extended to.
Thank you, Claire.
Your Worship, can I just clarify something? Completely understand the position, Councillor Davidson, and see that the resolution, I think, was not to proceed with any sort of spending money this year. It was to have the facts, the information, so it was a part of next year's annual plan, and then it's up to the residents to decide and the ratepayers. Is it a project that people are prepared to pay for or not?
Through Worship, the funding from NCTA is for 3 years locked in.
Yep.
So it'll be over and above that.
Yes, that's what I mean. That it would be a cost to the rate.
Targeted rate.
And I think at the time that we raised it, I think one of the discussions was around being prepared in case there was some form of government funding in the same way that we got for the Old Christchurch Road, that we're actually prepared with some information to know doesn't stack up, what's it going to cost? And I think that was well discussed at that particular meeting. Perhaps.
Thank you.
Money printing machines on strike
Might be running it, you'll get your printing press started up, Paul, and start running at the great start.
So, look, perhaps I could invite a councillor to move that the updated action list be received and that we remove the Western Holdings Directorship, Three Waters Leather, Local Government New Zealand Heads of Agreement, and Responsible Dog Ownership from the action list. Is there any others?
And 18.
On number 18, which was for the waste management delivery. Okay. Would you like to move that? Yep. Councillor Davidson, thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor Neal, those in favour?
All right.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Simon. Move on to the staff reports. The first one is the financial performance to September 2021, and it's on pages 12 to 25 of your agenda. And for the second meeting in a row, we welcome Lily Truman, Finance Manager. Thanks, Lily.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good afternoon, Your Worship and councillors. Through Your Worship, I present the financial report. I'll take it as read, and through Your Worship, I'll happily accept any questions.
Very clean and clear-cut report. Particularly proud of nothing to comment on. Paul.
Just one question, clarification really, thank you. Under, I don't know what page that is. 11, page 11. And wastewater, and it says the Hokitika outfall structure is not yet commenced, and the Hokitika wastewater treatment plant underway, blah, 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 blah. What are we talking about?
So what page is this?
Page 11.
Yeah, it's actually page 25.
Of the agenda, I beg your pardon.
Sorry.
You said it's page 25 of the agenda,
Yeah.
page 11 of the financial report.
So the funding that we have received from government regarding the Three Waters package, tranche 1, has been utilised first to fund this wastewater treatment plant. So we've got a significant portion of that funding allocated to the wastewater treatment plant. So we haven't touched our own money yet.
So, sorry, the question was, it says the Hokitika outfall structure has not yet commenced.
As a carryover from the previous time.
It's a carryover from the previous, and
that needs to be
I should update that.
Yeah.
Right, okay. I wondered, but
that's all.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question around the civil defence projects, the operations centre, do we have an update on that?
On what's actually happening with regards to the operations centre? No, I don't at the moment, but I will follow that up.
Through Your Worship, I've set up a working group to take that project forward. We've assigned a project manager. We're at early stages in terms of scoping. So there's been some visits to centres of excellence in terms of that space, and we're going to pull that back in terms of design. So those are working group included to clear around. Mel Anderson, Tiara Cook.
We look, this is a West Coast operations centre.
It's going to be originally for our EOC. There's been potentially requests from other agencies to support early days yet. Looking to house themselves there during a crisis. So there's quite a bit of work to do in terms of defining the scope of it. Particularly talking to the CDM group from Regional Council where they would like to house themselves.
And it's intended to be IL4, is it?
Yes, it has to be.
Excellent, thank you. Nothing further.
Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Linley. I just have a question around the gross debt. It's risen by 3 million from August to September.
Yeah.
Was that sort of moved around for working capital? Or?
Yeah, it was moved around for our benchmark, so we've pre-funded $3 million. So there'll be a catch-up in May when we intend to do our loan funding at that point.
So with that large debtor being paid, will that help with working capital requirements?
It's not so much working capital, it's looking at our interest rates, etc. Yeah, and our debt benchmarks. Great, thank you.
That's all for me.
I didn't understand most of that, but it was very good. Thank you, Councillor Hart. Councillor Hartshorn
No, fine from me, thanks.
and Councillor Kennedy.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Lindley. This actually isn't a question for you, but I was just wondering what the delay is with the Wataroa and Ross playgrounds and installing the safety matting.
Do we have anyone here who knows the answer to that?
I can find out.
We'll come back to you later on today, Councillor Kennedy.
Thanks, man.
Councillor Hart.
It's me.
Sorry. Councillor Neal. Councillor Davis.
No questions from me, Your Worship.
Look, thank you very much indeed. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
I'll invite the councillor to move that the financial performance report for the 3 months to the 30th of September 2021 be received. Councillor Davidson.
Yep, I'll move that.
Thank you. Councillor Neal, thank you. Now those in favour? Right, we'll move on to the next item of the agenda, which is quite substantial. It's the Chief Executive's quarterly report. It's on pages 26 to 41 of your agenda, and Simon Bastian, Chief Executive, will present it.
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. As the Mayor alluded to, this is quite a substantial report and it covers multiple topics. How I intend to run through this is we'll stop topic by topic and go around with questions. Take you through this. So matters of significance, obviously something that's not in this report is obviously the current COVID-19 cases that have identified themselves in Christchurch today. We had a regional joint committee meeting at just on 12 o'clock. So there's going to be further alerts come out as the day progresses, which may see some change in levels within the South Island, yet to be quantified exactly where. Any questions on that? I can't guarantee I've got the answers to them at this stage though.
You think Christchurch is likely to go to lockdown?
There's a high potential, yes.
They're at level 2 today. It's been announced.
Can't see that.
So level 2.
Level 2?
Just as long as they don't extend that.
Okay, I will carry on. So the Three Waters reform. As obviously everyone's fully aware from yesterday, the government has made it mandatory opt-in, which will see the entities come into fruition in July 2024. Obviously, it's a legal process that the government will need to follow to actually make that enforceable, and there will be obviously further consultation as it goes through. So what does it mean for us? We'll need to start working on a transition program, no matter what the political aspirations are. We'll just carry on and do some work in the background in terms of how we would transition into this and work with relevant departments on that. We have started doing some gap analysis already in terms of the new water regulators, new water standards that are in draft at the moment. So we have identified some gaps in terms of what the new expectations are, but they're not overly onerous in terms of cost, but there will be some cost that comes into play in terms of what we would need to do to upgrade our plants.
So the Minister talks about the working groups to sort of tweak things in terms of the performance. We'd like to be involved in that in any sort of way.
We haven't been involved as a direct before. We get generally a conduit through the representation on that forum. So if you recall, the steering group from LG&Z pretty well was made up from national body membership, but also a couple of technical experts within local government. That potentially will be the same this time around.
Perhaps that's a good opportunity to raise the fact that 60 out of the 67 councils in the country have not opted in. There are, at the present time, Zoom meetings going on between mayors and people from councils that have decided to opt out. There's another one tonight, there's another one first thing in the morning, and it's quite clear that both Auckland and Canterbury will be leading their own legal charge on the process that's been undertaken. So how would councillors like to be kept informed as to what's occurring there? Because there's a lot happening.
It's probably going to be in the national reviews and all that sort of stuff, I guess.
I'm thinking more of, for instance, where will we, any discussions that are going on in relation to how we will be standing for our ratepayers, because we're like a lot of other areas where well over 90% of our ratepayers have said we want out of this. There will be pushback, there'll be considerable pushback around the country. Grey Power has announced 2 days ago that it's in opposition to it. I mean, the level Federated Farmers have come out in opposition.
Taxpayers Union.
Taxpayers Union. There's a lot of things happening. So, unfortunately, well, we will clearly need to stand for our ratepayers and push back as best we can.
What's the position of LG&Z in this situation?
Like I alluded to earlier, they have made it clear that they were never in favour of a mandatory opt-in. They have an obligation to fight for all their members, no matter what the stance is. So we'll see how that progresses over the next few weeks.
Because this might not work out well for LG&Z potentially. Might they be a casualty in this process?
Well, they've already had a member to resign.
Yes,
Timaru District Council.
And Christchurch's discussion is coming up. Local government New Zealand, in my opinion, has badly let down its member councils by signing the heads of agreement that it did without giving us any form of consultation whatsoever. It took us all completely by surprise. And keep in mind, at the July local government conference that we were at, and we were all there together, nobody said a word. And so there's no question in my mind. I'm very disappointed with local government. I don't think the repercussions will stop.
Would you think they just didn't anticipate the level of council opposition?
I believe they cuddled up with government and then came to sell the government proposal to us, as opposed to coming to us and saying, what do your people think? What do the people of your districts think?
Because we pay them a substantial fee every year to act in our interests, and maybe they haven't done that.
And there may be a time when we need to look at whether, in fact, our representation on local government New Zealand is something that we want to spend the money on.
24,000 a year, isn't it?
35, I think.
Which gets us what?
Support, representation, work on various remits, but and obviously they have other parts of their business like equip program and also recruitment aspects. Which
is a club, and it's a club that hasn't worked well for us this time around. It's really disappointing, and you know, we've been bombarded with Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting, and it's all fluffy stuff trying to convince us that that the way we're interpreting things is wrong. And I've been pretty disappointed, but I'm not alone. I mean, there's lots of other mayors that say both.
Through the chair, what was the percentage of councils that opted out?
I believe that we're 60 out of 67 have opted out.
No, I haven't opted in.
Sorry?
That was how many didn't opt in.
Yeah.
There were only about 7 or 9 was it that actually opted out.
Yeah.
About 10% have opted in.
Okay, so, and what percentage of people would have opted in? Have they worked that out at all or opted out?
It was, 7 out of 67 opted in. And what's become quite clear now is that a number of councils were under the impression that they were going to go to the 30th of September, give feedback to government, and then be given the chance to then go to their people, which was never my interpretation. It's certainly not what the cabinet said.
And I understand that those proposals were set up by the government, opt in or out.
Yes, they were. They're detailed in the cabinet minutes.
That's right.
Yeah. So there's some disappointed people around the country at the moment, but that's how we have to deal with.
It's been an interesting procedure, isn't it, in retrospect, because whilst councils were given an opt-in, opt-out opportunity, that really wasn't never the intention. If the government was going to force it through no matter what, the options we were given are redundant and meaningless.
There's a significant piece of process that's been missed out in terms of their final decision. We haven't actually had a proper consultation with our community. Some councils haven't even consulted with their communities on the impacts of opt-in, opt-out. So to make it mandatory before consultation creates a few questions in my mind.
Is that the kind of issue that might form the basis of a judicial review of that?
There's a lot of aspects in terms of the process that can be challenged. I'm not sure the angle the legislation will take, but there's options there.
And what I'll do is keep all of you in the loop as to the various discussions that we get involved in. If something comes my way, I'll send it out to you on a confidential basis. And if you have any questions, we are ants amongst the elephants.
Through your worship, that's the comment about the 60 that opted out, well, didn't opt in. It's those figures I see in the Internal Affairs report have been massaged somewhat.
Yeah.
And then they've grouped us with the bottom 8 of dissenters of the councils that opted clearly out. And yes, the whole that it's all an interpretation of how you want to read those figures and what you wanted to say. But I mean, the whole thing has just been, not much left to say, is there? But I think they'll rue the day. I think it's right up there with SNAs. It's just par for the course for this lot. Do what they like. And this is just I'm sure this is only the entree anyway. The local government reforms, that's the big meat. I don't think we'll be around in a few years' time, to be honest. I think we're sitting ducks for amalgamation.
The thing that Canary's been talking about, and I was on a Zoom meeting this morning, and their big concern is that all of the footpaths and the roads where the pipes for Three Waters go belong to councils. And so there's some wise people around floating and saying, well, perhaps NZTA should take over footpaths. And it's pretty.
They hadn't thought of that one, had they?
No. Councillor Hartwell.
Yeah, just through the worship. I just wanted to say that there was never an option, was there? The only option was to go with it or they just put a lot of fluffy ducks out there to make us feel good. Really, and it's just like the ECNA, that's bad news how that got passed. Yeah. Just dictating a wee bit.
Yeah, well, I guess time will tell. Simon.
Any further questions on Three Waters before I move on? Okay, the Three Waters Capital Program, we're talking about tranche 1 funding that we have received. Kudos goes to the district assets team, particularly Mike Evers, who has contracted to support us in terms of the projects we have identified, 43 in total, and we are on track to meet them all in terms of the time frame. Just highlight the biggest piece of work that has been added late, just Town Valley stormwater upgrade. So there's 600,000 been reallocated towards upgrading the Town Valley stormwater line. And that project will have to be completed by end of March as well.
Just on that, Simon, with the instructing contractors to investigate the state of our pipes.
That's already almost been completed.
Right. So when will a report come back from that?
We've got to the end of March to finish that piece of work. We can provide potentially an update at the next Capital Projects Tenders Committee, which is coming in February.
Yeah.
There is some major failings in terms of our infrastructure.
Yeah.
In terms of Hokitika Wastewater Treatment Plant, like I alluded to earlier, we've actually had a very engaged working group, subcommittee on this process, ably led by Stantec. It is a little bit challenging right at the very start, trying to define the problem and actually what we're trying to address, but we've come to the end of that now. We've got an agreed outcome statement, which is improving health, environmental and cultural outcomes by delivering a fit-for-purpose, resilient wastewater treatment plant for Hokitika. In terms of the next stage, it's really getting to the start of the nuts and bolts regarding understanding locations and the expectations of the size of the plant, etc. So that'll start on the 24th of November. Happy to take questions on both the wastewater treatment plant and the Three Waters projects.
Thank you. Just looking at the successful application to vary the contract with Embry or to shift that $600,000 around from the Hokitika wastewater treatment plant project to other projects, including stormwater at Town Belt East. Why?
Mainly because we couldn't have utilised the full fund of the wastewater treatment plant by the end of March. If we didn't use it, we would lose it. So they were only. So the challenge for the tranche 1 is to have it completely spent by the 31st of March next year. So we didn't have enough, I suppose, investment at the front end of wastewater treatment plant to get it spent. Hence, we had ambitions to get this project well advanced by then. I suppose we slowed ourselves down by having a better consultation process with our EV partners, which saw us probably slip 6 months worth of work. So they took a bit of convincing to actually reallocate the money, but we managed to get it across the line. So we'll still use all of that fund and get it spent. The Town Valley's project had to be done anyway.
So that 600,000 is that's part of the bag of lollies from the government, isn't it?
Yes.
Three Waters.
Yes.
The inducement.
Any other questions on that particular item? Thanks, Simon.
In terms of PDF funding, just very quick updates on the various projects we get underway. The last remaining one in terms of the solid waste management Butler's landfill. So that project, you can tell from the photos, is progressing reasonably quickly. So their target completion date is by the end of February to have that completed. They're doing a great job down there. Con Street is looking at the end of December to complete that piece of work. We've already talked about Old Christchurch Road. There's still 90k there to do some final tweaking, and that hopefully will be finished by the end of December as well. In terms of Jackson's Bay Wharf, the works that we have funding for will be ended by the end of November. And highlight there that no progress was made in tracking any external funding to do any further works in that space. And the big one is the Hokitika swimming pool. We have had some significant delays, mainly two aspects. One is, and they're probably both linked to COVID. One is the ability to get materials out of Australia, and also the getting materials out of Auckland once it went into level 4. So we've actually seen 5 weeks slippage on that project, which is really unfortunate. All the subcontracts are going really well and are on target. So we have a new end date, or start date, I should say, of opening back on the 10th of December. We have started working on stage 2, and we expect to have that project starting around the first week of May. So it'll be a short summer period for the swimming pool. Happy to take questions on that before proceeding, Your Worship.
Any issues there, councillors? Any questions?
There was a question or comment earlier about these trees. Is this actually material in terms of are we spending a lot of money now to re-engineer, redesign, or are we just going to sacrifice
Cutting to the
tree?
chase, it's not going to, we can't save them based on current design that we have.
So they get milled.
No, they don't get milled. I haven't got any update regarding the ability to relocate them. Has there been an update at the last council meeting?
I'm not sure. I'm just thinking about, like, are we going to say we want a smaller pool because of, not this pool, swimming pool? Do we want a smaller pool because of 2 trees?
I want a small pool.
You want a small, you know, really?
Yeah.
What are we talking about here? Are they protected trees? Are they important trees?
The only
are they
option is
significant trees.
The only option would be to basically put the new changing rooms in front of house 90 degrees and put the pool behind the current pool, but we don't own the land behind the current pool.
I think it's
Save the trees. Save the trees.
Save the trees. What's are they a native tree, Paul?
No,
Phoenix Palm.
but Councillor Davis, through Your Worship, those trees have been there since we were all little tots. Everyone has. It's just a feature of that otherwise featureless pool.
Tremendous.
So in terms of, I haven't got the update in terms of the ability to relocate. I think there was some work done with that. Scott, do you have an update?
Yes, I mean, we touched on it at the last council meeting, is that we can relocate them. The message that we got back is there is a risk associated with relocating any tree of that age.
Yeah.
So it wasn't where they put them, it was just moving them themselves. And as you've already outlined, if we leave them where they are based on the current design, the trees will go through the roof and the police will get put in place too.
Can they be shifted slightly on site?
The issue is not where, it's moving at all, so.
If they're shifted just a couple of metres, for example,
I think once you touch the roots, once you start compromising the infrastructure underneath.
I mean, the initial advice we asked for is would moving the trees down towards the beach kill them, and basically said not any more than anywhere else you put them. It's when you start to disturb something of that age, there is always a risk with it.
Through with respect, if there was a will, there's a way. I think that that design hasn't been finalised.
To relitigate the design now would mean that we wouldn't meet next timeline for next year to start the works. So we're actually really against it now in terms of design. Just put it in before the start of end of April and have it consented and everything in that time frame. So we would actually be probably losing 12 months worth of work.
Can the trees be moved right to the front of the section and stay on the section? As I was asked before. Yeah, yes. Straight down the middle or compromise.
Yes. I mean, that was suggested at one stage
but once again, just highlighting what Scott said, if we move it at all, there's a risk they won't survive. So we could take the risk of moving it, leaving them on the site
It's
as a priority.
it's through the chair. There's an element of risk in moving trees. Doesn't matter where they are.
Yeah.
And if you've got, which I understand, you've got, you know, Neil, is it? Yeah. I mean, so he's really good at doing that sort of thing. So, you know, it's. I believe you guys are on the right track of getting the right person in, and as he said, it doesn't matter where you relocate them. That's not the issue. It's just that there's just a when you relocate trees, there is a risk that some of them may die.
I think the debate, if we're going to move them, this debate is then keep them on the existing site, or do we actually add a feature in the beachfront? Because actually where they're proposed to go on the beachfront makes a significant feature in itself, with the palm tree and the walk-through from Mel Lane. It's quite striking.
Through worship, I think that it's not really a question of it's not like moving around the Pahutakawa trees that the tree was moved all those years ago. These Pahutakawa trees are just weeds on the west coast. They grow like weeds. They're not endemic to the west coast at all. Nor of course is this, being a Norfolk pine or whatever, Arizona palm or whatever it is. I'm not sure what it is even, but Phoenix palm, yeah. But it's just such a feature has been a feature of the town for generations now. I think we should be looking to move them then to the front of closer to the footpath on that side, rather than just giving up and put them on the back of the truck and hope for the best down the beachfront. I would like to see them at least try to move them to the front of the section. They did this in Greymouth with the aquatic centre. They moved some big palms. I think they're the same kind of palm trees, really. But they've been there like for donkey's years as well, and they moved them successfully, but only on the same site. They didn't truck them down to the beach, leave them at the mercy of the sea.
Well, there's a couple of issues here in terms of if you move them to the front of the site, does it actually diminish the actual vista, the view of the swimming pool, and can people actually see that there's a swimming pool sitting behind there, and that becomes an attraction in itself? We need to see if there's enough room moving it forward as part of the design feature as well. So we'll look at both options. Maybe we one there and one down at the beach. Go half and half.
Did they both need to be moved? I thought one of them was okay.
Only until the second pool comes along.
Second pool is no guarantee.
It's in the budget at LTP.
It's in the LTP, but there's no. That was only subject to external funding.
Yeah, that's right.
There is none.
We haven't tried to find funding at the stage.
It may dry out.
We could sell the trees.
No. I think you'll find some people will be silly enough to chain themselves to them almost. Those trees are iconic too. I hate that word. They're
Pretty prickly though, Paul.
I think Mr. Simon, that your team will investigate whether there's a slide forward option. Yeah. Move on then?
Yeah.
Tourism infrastructure funding. As you're aware, we have been successful for 5 projects within the Tourism Infrastructure Fund. They're all as part of scoping right now. I just want to draw your attention to the Hokitika Beachfront Infrastructure Development. So we applied for $230,000 towards a new entrance onto the beach made out of Westlock blocks. That the additional funding will come from Regional Council as part of their wall upgrade, and that's previously been approved. Happy to take any questions before I move on.
questions?
What's the timeline on that construction, Simon?
We don't have one because we need to link it into their wall and their contractor. Once Regional Council approve the design, we can move forward. So Regional Council is directly working with Westlock to confirm it.
Be a game changer.
Yeah, it will be significant.
Having the ability to get down on that beach, that's what people really want.
Carnegie Building. That project has actually been well managed by Trademark Construction and Richard Bullock from Josephs and Associates. They have seen some delays. Once again, COVID has been the issue. We're 30 days behind schedule. The new completion date is March 2022. But as you can see from the rest of the information there, there's a whole lot of work's been going on inside and outside, and they're well on track. Any questions on Canary? Moving on to the Pakuatara building. So we've managed to get a high level of costings across the whole project in terms of, and this includes fit out as well. So earthquake strengthening, building requirements, compliance upgrade requirements, fit out and specialist items, i.e. the lift and environment control. So you can see the relevant costs that come into all of those, and then the appendix has the detailed breakdown of those costs. So we are ready to obviously to go and start doing some detailed design work around this. Coming back to council in November with a workshop around the internals in terms of proposed layout and fit out. Questions?
Are those costs, projected costs in line with what you were expecting?
Yep.
So
if you look at the LTP, it actually matches the budget quite nicely. But it actually, that means the archive centre has to be incorporated into this budget as well.
So that puts the cost of the whole building, taking account the cost purchase price, about 5 million, around that.
Approximately.
Yes. Would that be its valuation now if it was a new build?
A new build for this size has been evaluated at 22 million. So this is about a quarter of the price if we had to start from scratch. That's based on new builds recently.
Yes, but that a new build would be in excess of 100% of the use property.
I can't quantify what those buildings respect to, but that's based on a couple of Blenheim, I think was one of them, and a couple of others.
If that's right, that's positive.
Yes.
So, Councillor Cogan.
Just a question around the compliance requirements at 860,000. What?
Have you seen Appendix 1? Basically got a breakdown of what that compliance requirements are.
Yeah, because we originally thought that the Paki earthquake strengthening was going to be in the vicinity of 950,000, didn't we?
No, that was with the maintenance requirement of around 700,000 as well, if you recall. So replacing the roof and all the other relevant components of it.
Oh, that was all up, including doing those two. So this doesn't give a breakdown though, because we're still not really sure. Okay, we've got this figure, but how much work can be done in the shorter term to be able to get the likes of the museum over to there by 2023?
No, so that piece of work needs to be done in terms of design work. We can't do the design work until we have a confirmed layout options confirmed. So we've got a number of those coming to council next month. Well, the detailed design in terms of architecture design, if we need to change anything within the building, we'll change the structure design as well. You know, if the layout needs to change in any way. So once that's all locked down, then we can get the architects to finalise the drawings and design and then go out for tender for the works.
Right. So the reality though is that potentially when our lease
or for the library
runs out on the library, it's not going to be in the time.
No, and bear in mind, we also have the next subject to this building. As we alluded to in previous council meetings, we may end up utilising that building while this is upgraded, depending on the future of this building. And we won't know that until we have that discussion next month.
It's just it's concerning for me at the moment that we're paying $100,000 a year for the library. That's just going to be throwing away money if we then have to commit to them for a further term of lease, and if that lease is going to be negotiated, you know, like I wouldn't like to think that we would be giving them like a 2 or 3 year.
Oh no, we would work around our time frame. We'll try and negotiate it around our time frame.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Simon. Those estimates, it's good to see them. Just what is the percentage in MBS and IL level that we're proposing to take the building to?
67%.
Yeah, and at IL level
2.
Okay. I do think that we should be investigating the costs of taking it to more than 67%.
The issue there is you only get 100% if you can re-engineer the foundations. And the reality of re-engineering foundations on that building, we've done that effectively on Canary, that's 100%. But building like this, to redo the foundations is completely different. And so that's why most of these buildings that age are only going about 67%.
So what is the net benefit of going to 100?
Well, it future-proofs the build, surely. Carnegie's been strengthened twice. I don't know. Do we want to be sitting here in 10 years' time saying now we've got to find alternative locations for a library and a museum and whatever, and we need to now take it to 78% might be the new number. I'm not suggesting 100, I'm saying what's higher.
At 67% now, because the building up 100% 5 years.
Oh yeah, appreciate that before the upgrades.
It is a very high bit of.
So what would be the next milestone? So if you say 100 is actually unaffordable and unachievable, is there for another X dollars, does it get you to somewhere else? Is what I'm asking. Does it get you to 88% or 92%?
We have to talk to the engineers in terms of what the next, you know, we have to reinforce this current steelwork, and that actually would be the next piece, because all we're doing in terms of earthquake strengthening is a couple of additional braces. There's nothing substantial in terms of earthquake strengthening proposed. Scott, did you have a question?
No, well, I was going to come in on, we did actually ask the question for consultants we're working with, and they said that you're heading into territory of you might well be more to start again. You're going to start to put additionality in with beyond 67%, because the costs are prohibitive with all the other things that you've got to do with that. So the advice that we got was to do that.
And the staff are aware it will be 67%. They're happy to work inside that building. We're not going to have what we've had in the past.
Working a lot less than that.
No, I mean, these are all risks, right? We have to assess all the risks. And
well, it meets the criteria for the type of work that's done in the building. That's going to be in there. So that includes, you know, museum and library and public as well. So that is what the code requires.
I think it would be really good to just sort of note in our minutes somewhere that that's this conversation, because not from just to say, you know, what David said, which is all sensible, and it's very clear why we're making this decision, because it's just future-proofing really, and thinking about the future. So it sounds like it is 67%, but we now know. I'm really clear on how we got to that now.
Future proofing. It's interesting. Look, if we had won Lotto, this would be a lovely project, but we haven't. And Instead, we're in a COVID world where the glaciers businesses are on their knees, and yet we're proposing to spend an awful lot of money on a project it's almost like a project that's looking for a building. It's that I just don't see that it is necessary in this age. And talk about future proofing. I mean, as we mentioned before, the local government reforms are bearing down on us, and amalgamations are a certainty. I don't think that this council is going to be the size that it is now. It's going to be gobbled up into at least a West Coast council. It could be even worse. But I just don't know that this is the time to be splashing out and for a building that really is just looking for something to put in it. The libraries, I understand that, but I mean, the library maybe sensible thing to do is to put the library back from whence it came, down below. There's a great big dance hall almost down the bottom floor. Currently with the eyesight, eyesight's a sunset business anyway. Doesn't need to have that great space, and the library could go back in there, and it's a functional space. It might not be as pretty, but it's functional, and I just don't think that the time is right.
I respond to that. I disagree with you, Paul. I think in the post-COVID world, the need for local amenities is even higher because people are not travelling like they used to. People know that. Therefore, people are looking for localism, and I think that we've got a potential. I mean, I was cynical about it initially. Build the rest you just twist, but as time's gone on, I just see that as a fantastic amenity for our community in the post-COVID world, where we are going to be looking for more and more community amenities, and I think that it's going to be a great potential amenity, even though right now we don't know exactly how it's going to look. But I think it's the time is right for it.
Sorry, just one comment to make. In terms of lotto, you might win lotto, but all of these significant projects, there is a process that I need to follow to actually apply for lotteries funding as well as part of a wider gamut of other projects that we have in our line. So all our funding options have been explored as well. So we will be putting a hand up for some external funding for this.
Jane?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that I don't have pouring lots of money into it, but I think we had those discussions as well, and I'm not keen on it, but I think we have decided that's what we're going to do. We'll probably need to keep doing that. Just busy, we don't know what 7 house is likely to be raised. So is it going to 67%, 100%?
I think DOC require quite a high standard in terms of all their buildings. No, I don't.
Well, they've had a geotech rig there drilling, find bottom, and I understand they didn't find bottom. And so I think I've only got foundations across the road, they've got a massive problem there. Because they will have to deal with the foundation issue.
And of course, where Griffin, where Mitre 10 is, some years back, there was talk of putting the rural bank there. And they bought a drilling rig in, and they couldn't find bottom either.
Of course, there's an old through the ridge, there's an old creek goes through.
Oh, really?
Oh, this is going to gives me a lot more now.
Goes right beneath Council of Arton's indoor markets. That's when my brother had the garage there. Used to flood the pits.
Councillor Davis.
Yes, thank you. It's really good to get that report. Sort of stating it's 3.5 mil. Where did the 22 mil come from, that report? Who reported on that one for a new one?
Joseph and Associates gave us some comparisons.
Okay. So, yeah, some would say that it's not necessary to develop, and others would say there's an opportunity out there to develop. You know, these sites, this one here, the one across the road, they're great sites for this town. And I just wouldn't put it out of the question to look at build new. I know there's a lot of money, but I'm looking at things now, and I've got a change of mind on things, and perhaps build new in both places. Just throwing it out there.
You have one, Lord.
No, it's just you know, before we sort of, you know, go any further, I'd just like to think about it. That's all.
Before you get the problem, if take away what we paid, 1.2 million, you know, the cost of demolition should be from $300,000 to $500,000, and then the cost of a new build, that makes it completely.
Yeah, David. I don't want us to do the sums, but I'd like to get someone in to do it for us. Because
we are doing that as part of, I suppose, when we looked at the numbers for that, we compared it to what a new build would be. We'll be doing the same for this building in terms of evaluating what a new build will be for this building as well.
And this, you know, I mean to say, if you do another investigation, that you might find that this building, you may not need this building here.
Through your worship, that discussion was held previously as well, of course, and it was left in abeyance, but there's always the option that someone might build offices for the council, not the council building. Option has never been explored.
I don't say no to any idea.
But whether we buy or lease, the end result cost is the same. If you simply pay the lease, over time you'll be paying what it's going to cost to build. So that's no financial advantage to it.
Well, I think look, it's been discussed. We're not asking for a decision today, so I wonder, so perhaps it's appropriate to move on.
Yep. Just pointing out, in terms of council headquarters, once again, like I said, we'll come back next council meeting with some more detail in terms of what the costs look like, very similar to what we've done in Pakawaitara building. Custom house. So this is money that's been applied for lotteries through Heritage Hokitika, and they've asked us to pick it up and actually complete the work. So the work has been scoped, and the new piling will start in January 22. So that'll meet the timeline of the lotteries requirements. West Coast Wilderness Trail. So we have put our hand up for some more funding and have had recent feedback that we are close to getting approval. But there is a cap in terms of how much we can actually apply for. So Scott's team is actually reevaluating the priorities regarding those 5 applications, and we'll optimise external funding to get them completed. I just want to highlight any questions on that before I move on. Just want to highlight some things on the other activities. Obviously, under corporate services, Audit New Zealand are in a very difficult position. They've actually put a delay of carrying out the annual review. So we have the auditors in the building today and next week as well. But it does put us under a lot of duress in terms of completing the annual review and starting the annual plan process. Some councils are under duress even to get their tax returns completed in time next year. So we have managed to stay at the front end of the audit process. Thanks to Leslie's determined negotiating. We have started our budgets, initial budgets for next annual plan, and we'll have those drafted and completed by end of tomorrow for Leslie's team to take some work around it and work through any nuances that come in with that. Just want to make a comment around insurance renewals. Leslie's been championing this as well, but there's the insurance space is becoming very, very tough to deal in, particularly liability insurance. We have had quite a bit of to-ing and fro regarding coverage for directors and officers of our CCOs. Currently, they sound like they were going to push back and not cover them until their annual plan had been signed off, but now it looks like they're actually covered. There is some real issues regarding ongoing liability insurance there. Information technology, some great work happening in this space, particularly around digitising most of our manual systems. So Richard and his team are taking a big step forward using our Laserfish database system to streamline front of house stuff too, which will help the direct debit process. We sort of touched on planning regarding Rebels, but I just want to touch on a couple of other things that are happening in the planning space. As some of the councillors will be aware, we've fast-tracked the Taipatini One District Plan. That has put a lot of stress on our team and also on the members to actually get through all the literature and the reading that goes with it. So the intention is to have that completed by the end of this year and out for consultation. And part of that work is obviously some rezoning, and Fiona's been down to Franz Joseph, to the community down there, and completed a small workshop a couple of weeks ago to move that forward. Some big challenges in that space. I just want to highlight too how busy, I suppose, not only planning but building departments are. You can see the comparison versus resource consent applications, almost double this time last year. So everyone's active in this space, and there's a lot of new developments being proposed. There is one resource consent that I would like to highlight, which is the Hokitika Coastal Protection Alliance work. It is aligned, obviously, with regards to the Regional Council seawall development, and the consent has been discussed between the applicants and now its staff. We'll take any feedback on those before I move on.
Questions there, Councillor? Simon, you were looking for a couple of building compliance officers recently. How's that gone?
Oh, so that's going to come next. I'm just starting up, but we have hopefully got one signed up as of today.
Fantastic.
It's been a long, I think we've been out 6 times trying to find those roles. Yeah. We're very, very close.
Sorry.
Sorry, and it could have also been a conversation that was held prior to me getting here. But just touching on the Rebel Street concept again, which looks at shop owners. They've got the concept ready to go to shop owners now. So my understanding from our original discussions wasn't that they just get notified now. It was that the concept designs were going to get taken around the shop owners after the workshop that we held, to be able to then show them what was going to be starting to happen before it started to happen, and that a plinth was going to be put up there at the start for people to also then be able to visualise what was going on. But in the meantime, none of that happened, and then all of a sudden, all of this work's going on down there, and I'm just getting constant feedback daily from people going, what the hell is going on down on Rebel Street? Because they don't see the bigger picture. And that, to me, that's disappointing, because, we my understanding was that we were on this understanding that we would continue with the trial period so long as, you know, we had a plinth there that was showing what the intention was, that the businesses were talked to and showing the plan. And
so the workshop outcome was that we would show them the final design, not a I suppose the temporary design. So that final design hasn't been finished yet, but it's very, very close.
but why wouldn't we have shown them, had the goodness to have shown them the temporary?
That
design?
was shown to most shop owners. I think his worship went around most of them to show them the temporary works.
Yes, I did.
And so
So
now people have to wait for the plinth to go up and for the final
the
design.
plinth's almost finished as well. So the final design's imminent. So within hopefully the next week, that's installed and up with the final design finalised. So that I only saw the final mock-up getting finalised yesterday. It still needs quite a few tweaks to it.
And the plinths are getting painted at the present time. So that this week or next week.
So we don't have a final design until it's been developed. What we had at that stage is after the workshop was the mock-up of the temporary design.
And I would like to see that with any future things we do like this in the downtown area, that this plinth is used with, even if it's an initial concept design, is put up for people to have a look at, rather than because there's a lot of, you know, not very happy people out there and at the moment that I'm talking to about it. And I do believe we could have managed this better.
I think reflecting on this whole project, we should never try to meet a deadline. We should actually try to do the upfront work before we actually define what the deadline is. We shouldn't rush into things.
No, I agree.
Should I suggest that the Guardian?
Oh, we'll do both, yes. We'll put a media release out with it as well.
I mean, put the whole plans, even though I don't agree with it, but the whole plans in the paper and
well, it depends how much we can afford.
How many times should it go in?
This was a double page spread and lift out.
I was thinking of leaning on the largesse of the editor.
We'll work on a press release once we're finalised.
When can we anticipate that might happen?
I said I saw it close to completion yesterday. I'd have to come back exactly the timeline of completion, but I'm hoping within the next week.
Just a question on that. It's under planning. Is that so the Rebel Street is a planning project?
I think when we recalibrate this going forward, any future works will be done under a planning timeframe, but delivery will be handed over to district assets for delivery. So it's actually, the planning function is completed when the design concept is done. Then the execution is managed by projects too.
And then like for feedback and for, you know, bouquets and stuff, who is the officer that would receive, you know, if you see someone and say, I want to talk, you know, it's no point toward them talking to councillors, who would we say?
Currently Fiona's still leading the project.
Oh yeah, so go to Fiona. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Simon, you mentioned your attention to the resource application. Do you want to talk about the implications of that?
The implications on it, but I can't divulge too much because I'm not across it all. Can I ask this, Fiona? Online. Fiona, can I ask if you come in and talk about where we're at with that application?
Sorry, could I just get you to clarify the question, Jane?
So 3.2.3 regarding the resource consent application to extend and construct coastal protection works.
Yeah, so we received the application. It's been accepted into the council system and it's currently on hold.
The question, I think the question was, see if you could expand on the implications for council. Is it possible, Fiona, or is that not appropriate?
For district council?
Yes.
Yeah. So we receive a resource consent. We assess it on a case-by-case basis. So it is the first in line. So we assess it as with any other resource consent. So the only implications I imagine for council, and this may be more Scott's department, is that transportation will have a say on the basis of it being road reserve. With regard to the Resource Management Act, we treat all resource consent applications the same.
Okay, look, thanks for that, Fiona. Appreciate it.
And the last section here is regarding staffing update. You would have seen we do have each quarter a reasonable turnover of staff. I'm trying to put a lid on that, trying to retain as much staff as we can. But we've had a number of people leaving for various reasons. And unfortunately, Megan decided to leave us as well.
Without permission, I may say.
We might be in
we
discussion.
We wish her well in her future pursuits. But we do have a number of incoming, and that incoming obviously is well received. And we also have a number of vacancies, as you can see, quite a few roles that are still vacant, 7 in total. But out of those 7, 3 are close to being confirmed. So we're stepping closer to closing the gap in terms of our roles.
It's interesting, councillors. One of the things that comes up in every discussion with the mayors is staff churn, and we're all pinching staff off from each other, and he pinches them, and it's an issue everywhere, and there's a real shortage of good qualified people.
The challenge is us as local government competing with private industry, and obviously the pay rate differences are quite a different. The biggest concerns that we do have is planners and building. They are in severe shortage, and that if you look once again at government legislation, planners and building will be well sought after in private industry. One point of note is Wellington or central government is taking a lot of local government employees as well into the ministries, which is also causing us some grief. And the last point.
Sorry, on the one. Has COVID requirements to be vaccinated impacted at all in any of these areas?
So there's no mandatory requirement for local government at this stage.
Regardless of the roles.
No, but we are considering the impacts of, so we're waiting for some legal advice from LG&Z in terms of, and they're doing it for all councils across New Zealand. We have received some legal advice from Solomon, and I've shared that with my staff today. There will be impacts on some council staff that will be going to work alongside relevant industries that are mandated, i.e. education, for example. So we have to play that one by one. So we are encouraging people to get vaccinated, but also we'll have to work through any impacts of mandatory vaccination as they occur. We haven't been identified currently as one of those areas that will be mandated. I wouldn't be surprised if we are.
Got a lot of front-facing staff.
Yes, well, there's very few that don't talk to the public.
That's right.
I was just looking at this one here with the youth employability facilitator.
Yeah, one part of consideration for future staff is to ensure we can have mandatory vaccination as part of, like a driver's license or something.
So any new people
come in already, which obviously can potentially be challenged. So that's why we're waiting for legal advice.
Thank you.
Any further questions then? Next slide.
And the final part of my update is to do with Lagoimas. Nothing dramatic in that space, not compared to previous years. We're working very well in terms of time frames.
Questions? Fantastic. Could I invite a councillor to move that the quarterly report from the Chief Executive dated the 28th of October 2021 be received? Councillor Neal, Councillor Hart, those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. We're on to the next item on the agenda, which is agenda number 9, administrative resolutions. And the request is that council confirm its seal being affixed to the warrant of appointment as listed on the agenda and stated below. And it's Bernadine Lombard. So I'd like to move Councillor Neal. Thank you very much. Do I have a second? Councillor Hart. So we have a mover and a seconder there. All those in favour? Thank you. And the second item is that council confirms its seal being affixed to the deed of variation of the head lease between Western District Council and Destination Westland Limited. The land is vested in the leaseor as a local purpose reserved for aerodrome and associated purposes, subject to the Reserves Act of 1977. Do I have a mover? Sorry.
Yeah, just a question. Yes, of course.
Is this that gnarly one that we heard about a few months ago?
This is the final.
Probably 12 months ago.
Right now.
Yeah.
Final.
Final counter. Do I have a mover?
So move.
Deputy Mayor Brothers, thank you. Councillor Cogan, thanks. Those in favour?
Aye.
Right. Now look for a council. Perhaps we end the meeting here before we move into confidential and have a break. Is that would that be?
Make it 3 o'clock resolution.
Yes, I think so. Do you want to resolve to go into confidential first? Okay. Do you have a mover to move us into confidential? Councillor Neal, Councillor Hart. Oh, you two are going well today. Thank you very much. Yeah, sorry. Those in favour?
Aye.
Yeah. To those watching the